and welcome to the Grow Giver podcast with Stephen Crawford, Justin Hoke, and Malcolm Finlayson. Hey, Malcolm, how you doing, brother? Today, we've got a special guest for you guys. We have brought Jenn and Joe with us today. It's going to be an amazing time. And Steve, take it away, brother.
Sure. Hey, guys, how you doing?
What's up?
Hey. We're just talking about you guys and what you do. I know you guys are creative finance experts. You guys work together. Usually what we do in the beginning is we like to have the guests give us a Clip Notes version of how they got from the beginning of their real estate journey to where they're at right now. Would you guys mind doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was lucky enough to get started in real estate in the year 2000. I was hanging out at a buddy's house. He was tearing through his closet looking for something and pulled out a real estate course with Ron LeGrand 22 years ago, almost 23 years ago. And it was like still in the wrapper, brand new. It was about how to make $3,000 in 30 days with no credit and cash. I'm like, that's perfect. I'm 22 years old. That's right up my alley. So when I asked if I could borrow it. A month later, I had a deal under contract. I wholesaled my first deal. I made 15 grand. It just turned 23 years old. And I thought, this is definitely the road for me. I grew up as a landlord's son. So I buy a house. I have a job. I meet Jenn, 2008. She was a teacher. She had her own house. And then in 2008, when the market started taking a turn, we were in New York finding deals. So we started buying real estate together. She was kind of on board in the beginning, but I was taking her to some pretty nasty houses. So she didn't always love it. And then fast forward, we started buying, we started borrowing, got more education. 2016, we really hunkered down on creative finance, learned how to buy real estate without banks, without credit. And that's what it was really the biggest impact for us. We hired a coach, we implemented it. Jenn walked away from teaching once we started having little ones, homeschooling. So we are the dynamic of, we work together. She homeschooled our kids, and we're real estate investors. And then 2020 came and COVID happened. And I was a finance director of a big car dealership in New York while doing this on the side, and they closed New York down. Jenn and I talked about doing this full time as a fantasy, but like much further down the road. Mm-hmm. And then it was one of those things when they closed New York down for a few weeks, we looked at each other. She's like, you're not going back to work. We're doing this now. And we did that jump. It's almost 3 years ago, March coming up.
Yeah. Was that leap scary?
It was scary because, we go from a single family or a single income family, and now you're going to be making it on your own. And the security of getting that paycheck, and they were really big paychecks, and the security of losing that gets scary. But then what you realize is you're living in your own fears. It's all in your head, and you could scale. And the thing about real estate, which I loved, and the reason why we could do it is because we knew I didn't have to burn anymore. I didn't have to go to the bank, get credit. I'm an 800 credit score. I'm not having to prove W-2s and all these things. I could buy real estate with a few $1,000s. And we were already doing that. So once we realized that we've already been doing this, our first creative finance deal was in 2017. It was a 0% mortgage. Like, we're like, holy cow, like we could really do well with this. So once we figured that out, we knew the timing would never be better than right now. And we did. So in the start of a global pandemic,
we took it full time.
We took it full time.
That's cool. I also started right as COVID hit. So I know that it was kind of an eerie time and things were weird. And my first creative deal also was zero interest. And I just thought that was the most amazing thing ever. You're not going to get those terms out of bank, that's for sure.
You never will. And that's when we realized that, you can control the pen with creative real estate. You could make the terms. And maybe because of my background being in the auto industry, what do we talk about? The price, the payment, interest rates, term lengths, which is the same thing that goes with real estate. So instead of a car, it's a house. So it's been something I've been doing for 20 years.
Right.
Cars and real estate. Now it's full-time houses because I like them more.
Yeah.
Although I love cars. I'm a big car fan, but
Yeah, but that's pretty neat. And so you've been doing this, and you guys have been working together on it for about 3 or 4 years now. I guess, or a little bit longer than that. I guess about 5 or 6 years as a team. What's that dynamic like between you guys? I know there's a lot of people who want to get their significant other involved in what they're doing, and I'm always curious. What's it like to work with your wife and husband?
Well, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
if it's your goal, if that's what you both want to do. But it actually started in 2015 was when I had my aha moment, when we had about 5 rental properties and 2 little kids under 2, Joe working these crazy hours at a dealership, and all of the tax bills went to one of the renters' properties, and I didn't pay them because I didn't have them in front of me. And realizing that I was needing to be an integral part of this business was my turning point. And then I really started diving into it at that point. So in 2008 to then, I was kind of like, oh, it's your thing. Okay, have fun with these gross houses. And then really, I was like, holy cow, like this is real. I need it. I found my place, and that was organizing and bookkeeping and really kind of keeping things going that way. And then as we started shifting and I really got into it in 2020, we were learning about social media marketing, which is a passion of mine. Kind of just hit the ground running with it. And from there, we've established our roles. He loves talking to sellers, analyzing deals, crunching numbers. I do not. That's not my favorite part. I can do it, but it's just not my thing. I'd rather find my zone of genius. And so we're really trying to, for first few years there, we're trying to figure out what our roles were and where we were happiest and where we did our best, instead of trying to force each other doing things that just weren't our thing.
The first time I had Jenn trying to write up an agreement, she was like, oh, hell no, that's your thing. I'm like, all right. All right. For a purchase and sale agreement, she was like, no shot, that's you.
Pass.
I've got to ask Joe, do you find now that you get get properties under contract that are a little less gross?
Well, that's why we really loved the creative finance stuff, because a lot of the houses that we're buying are beautiful houses in beautiful neighborhoods. Are turnkey. Like some just absolutely need nothing. And some just need a cleaning for a few $100s, and they're just like brand new again. So we like it. It's a lot easier to show them to the wife and kids, because my kids walk in there too. They've been real estate investors. My daughter's 10. My son is 8. They've been real estate investors since they were mama's belly. Yeah. So many properties. They go to
they have names for every one of them.
They go to the dirty properties too. They all have their own special names and memories, right? So one thing I will say, as far as getting your spouse on board, if you're going to work together, I know you probably love each other. Hopefully you do. But you also have to like each other too. Yeah. Okay. Right. And get along, because that's the key. Because if there's some things where if I know if I bring it up, she's going to be like, nope, veto, right? So like, you have to pick your lanes, stick to what works. Make sure you get along with your spouse and you enjoy working together. And that was always one of our goals, because sometimes that's easier said than done, but there was resistance in the beginning to, like you said, stick to your dirty houses.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I'm the dynamics of couples working together always fascinate me, because some people make very, very strict boundaries, and others are quite happy to talk about it 24/7. I know some couples that say, hey, we hit 7 o'clock and that from then there's no business, So how do you guys make those boundaries so that you don't just become a couple that's about business and not have a life as such?
It's a very good question. I'm probably more guilty. We're both early risers, but man, if there's something I want to tackle it head on, and he's like, it's 6 a.m, like we will deal with this later. Or, we'll be on the couch and he'll be on his phone like, hey, there's this great deal over here, right? And I'm like, it's family time. So there's still those moments, but
they're blurred lines. We like to set the boundaries, but they're blurred lines, because I'm a little weird. For some reason, I wake up in the middle of the night. So at 3:30 in the morning, I'm looking in our CRM. I don't know why I do it, but I just do. And I'm like, I'm going to respond to them now because they just sent us a message. These sellers are still up right now because they just sent us a message. So, okay.
Recently?
This morning.
Oh my God. Okay, well, that's crazy.
But once again, and here's the challenge too, is I passionately enjoy what I do. So a lot of the things, like if I wasn't doing this, I would probably, if I didn't do this full time on my off hours, I'd still probably be doing it because I like doing it. So it doesn't always feel like work, but you do have to take your time, because there's times where I just will check out. I'm going to go fishing. We're going to go to the beach. I'm going to play some Madden.
Like going out of your norm, I think really helps. We did like a staycation in a hotel, about an hour away, or going to Disney World with the kids. Like at those points, like it is no work talk at all. Like we really, truly, clock out. But when you're home and in the group, we worked from home for so long that it's just kind of the way we roll. So there are some blurred lines. We're really working on delegating a lot more, but we are passionate about it. It's hard when you love what you do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's neat that you guys have your kids involved, like, and they're going to be learning that as they're growing up. So that way, when they're, 20 years old, they'll already have all this knowledge and ability. That's, I think, key to getting a good start. I know, because I started later in life. So I think that's going to be a neat deal for your guys' kids. I have a couple kids that are about 4 or 5 years younger than yours. So I want to really do the same thing. Get them involved and have them understand all these things, like how to utilize debt and all that. Because growing up, you kind of get messages by how your parents are, and so I think it's neat that you're giving them a good start on that entrepreneurship mindset.
Well, and it's about education, and we homeschool. So everything that we do, we're literally teaching our kids. So my son, he's 8 years old, very ambitious. He likes to make money because he loves Godzilla. So he wants to buy a lot of these Godzilla toys. So what we did was we just had an agreement last week. I wanted to create this video, a collage of all of our students lumped together, talk about our program and things like this. And he loves, and he makes movies, and he's great at it at 8 years old. So I said, I'll tell you, I'll give you $50. You can save 30 of this. You have to save 30, and you can spend up to $20 of it. Whatever toy you want, it's yours. You're going to have to save $30, and then we're going to make this video together. And he was following me around, Dad, when are we going to make this video? Like, let's go. So we went on to Amazon. We ordered his toy after the thing was done, and it's a great one. So now we met with our marketing team yesterday. I needed to create another one. So I'm like, hey, Bradley, guess what? Remember how you told me you wanted to make another video because there's another toy you want? Well, here's your opportunity. And now this has been stuck in his head. He's showing me, he's like, Dad, this is what I want. I already got it in the Amazon cart. I know I can only spend up to $20. This one's a little over. Can we let this one slide and I'll save up my next one? He's been a negotiator. He's a negotiator already. The high-low, fair enough, Dad type thing. And he's ambitious. My daughter is great at digital art and things like that. So we're trying to get her on board, but she's kind of like wants to create her own art rather than, but she goes to the houses and she does all it. So she's very involved too.
Again, it's that, keep sharing and teaching, but let them come to you, because if you force something, then it's just not going to really work. But, they're absorbing and they get it. And we even took them to a meetup a couple weeks ago, and, they regurgitated some of what we were learning, and it was quite impressive. So,
oh yeah. He was talking about our son was talking about seller finance deals.
Yep. 8 years old.
So they're going to be messaging. We're going to get them involved early. I mean, I could see them messaging sellers through our CRM because we do some of it through messaging, and I could see them getting involved at a young age. Especially, both of them will, because they both like money.
We bring them right into the office. Like upstairs, we have our acquisitionist and our dispositionist, and our kids are upstairs in the office right now. So they hear what's going on when they're hopping on the phones and how they're talking to people. And they're also working on their schoolwork that I give them. But, it's really cool when you really think out of the box and get creative. Like, you don't have to live the way society has taught us. Like, going back to what you said earlier, it's create your new terms. How do you want your life to look? How we can buy real estate without any credit or going to banks. Like, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, that's neat.
Well, I wanted to jump in here and say, okay, so as you guys are going after creative deals, what would you say to somebody who's getting involved in a similar type of business, who's maybe just starting out? Should they focus on a broad area, or should they niche down into something specific, to maybe sort of have a stronger stream of focus?
So I figure when you're first starting out, you want to look at every lead you can, and everyone's going to tell its own individual story. I always am a big fan of starting off where you're familiar with or where you live. You know the area. You might have contacts already in the area. If I pick up and decide I want to start wholesaling or doing creative deals in Nebraska, how many people do I know out there? I don't know very many, if any. So it'd be more of a challenge. Not saying I can't do deals there, but it would be a little bit more challenging. I'd have to find buyers and things like that. But in my own backyard, I might already have contacts through friends and family. So I always say start where you live, or start with the area that you're super familiar with. And then number two, I would look at doing wholesaling along with creative finance because they kind of work hand in hand. So, when you talk to a seller and, they will take terms and it's a turnkey house and that low cash offer doesn't work, I have the ability to offer terms. Or if it's a seller who needs to get cashed out and that house needs a lot of work, I could look at that cash offer too, where I could either fix a flip or whatever, or assign it. So I'm a big fan of knowing both. So the big thing is just getting the education, because if you don't, I look at when we were first looking at just junkers, how many people reached out to us wanting to sell their home, and it was turnkey. And I'm like, oh, I can't buy that. I can't get it for 50 cents on the dollar. What am I going to do with that? And how many deals that we probably passed on would make me sick to my stomach. So
better, you do better.
So once I had the light bulb moment with another round the grand coaching of how to buy this in 2016, I felt bad for my wife. I know she loves me, because the entire year of 2016 and 2017, like if you were anywhere with me, that's all I talked about. If you're on my car and we're going out, we got my sports car, we're going to go on a nice date night. I got Ron's seminar talking about terms deals, and like she's all dialed up, I'm all dialed up, and we're listening to this in the car instead of like date. That was like a solid year, but we really dug down deep in learning how this worked, and then just started implementing it. And that was it.
With your business, you're acquiring these properties using creative finance. Could you go into like the different things you're doing, seller finance, subject to whatever, kind of give a little description of it and what your exit strategies would be?
Yeah, I guess we could just go over like the most recent deals, because those are always ones fresher in my mind.
Yeah.
Sure.
We just closed on one that we bought in Niagara Falls, New York. The guy just bought the house literally in June of last year, and a few months later he reached out and said, I never moved into it. I started tearing down the wood paneling in 2 bedrooms. I couldn't make the payment there and my rent. I just want to sell it. I never moved into it. Craziest thing in the world. Talked to his realtor friend. She says you would have to write a check for probably $10,000 to $15,000, $20,000 by the time you take out commissions and closing costs for what it's going to sell for, now that it's kind of messed up. So he didn't have that money. He was already running out of money. So we got in contact. He reached out to us. We made the deal on basically a subject to. I buy it in a wrap. It's a mirror wrap, which means I'm just wrapping my new debt around his existing mortgage at the same terms. I just gave him $1,000 down. It was the deal we made with him. So $1,000 down, we cover closing costs, covered a couple payments, insurance. I paid the guys to go put the drywall back in the rooms and paint it. And then what we do is our favorite exit strategy with these properties. We put in tenant buyers that we do a lease purchase. So we put in a tenant buyer on that property. They gave us $23,000 non-refundable option deposit. And we obviously make a few $100 a month on the rent. There's a set price that they know they're going to be able to buy it for in the next 2 years. And if they don't, we don't kick them out. We'll just look at the terms, make sure they still fit, and we'll proceed as long as they pay on time. And, we love that way because there's no maintenance, repairs. They do it all. And any money that we shell out to make that deal, because I'd love to say it's just $1,000 down, but our total cost of acquisition is like 17, 18 grand by the time we pay all the payments and all the stuff, but we get that back. So I've got a cash flowing asset that I've got no credit and no money tied into, and we're profitable within a few months. And now it's just an infinite return. So
yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazy, yeah. Sorry, I'm the technical person here. I'm not certain I've heard the term mirror wrap before. What's the implications of that exactly?
So with a mirror wrap, all that is I'm doing a wraparound mortgage around their existing debt at the same exact terms as the underlying debt. So my payment, my balance, and my interest rate match what his was. So I'm just wrapping that around that. So with a wraparound mortgage, it's just basically it's a It's an agreement that you're going to be making the payments is all it is. It's paper. I'm not going to a bank applying for a loan. So his balance is 222.
Right. So, I mean, what's the benefit of doing that? Is there any benefits to you for doing that, or having it in that structure as such?
Yes, versus a subject to. Now, every state does a little bit different, but in if I buy it on a wrap and a year from now he wants to go buy a new house, his mortgage processor is going to say, you have this old debt in your name and you're not going to qualify for a new mortgage. The reason why I do a wraparound mortgage is because now once they show that the purchase went through with the purchase and sale agreement, the HUD statement, and we show the underlying note that we created that shows that we are making that payment directly to him, that's going to wash out. It's majority of the debt, depends on the lender. It's most times like 75% of that payment will get washed out. So now he qualifies. If you buy it subject to, depending on the lender, you can hire a third-party loan processor. But the one reason I don't always love subject to is if you're in a situation where that seller or your buyer stops making the payment, you really put the seller in a position where it's hard to get the property back because there's no new note recorded. They can't foreclose on you. Now, in some states, they have things like performance deeds. A lot of the states, they don't recognize them. So in Florida, New York, they don't recognize those. So we just stick to doing it on a wrap mortgage. So if it's more protection for the seller. So if they need to get another mortgage, they can. If I don't make the payments, they can foreclose and take the property back from us or whoever buys the deal. So I look at it as make the agreement good for both parties and not just so one-sided.
Got you.
And that's why I love a wrap mortgage. So if I'm buying it for basically what they owe on it, then that's why I mirror it to their underlying debt. Now I'll give you another example. We bought a house in New York, gorgeous turnkey house. It's like a 2,700 square foot house in the swanky area town. Gentleman owned it, who was putting an Airbnb in it, and it just got too big to clean out because it's also got a finished attic and basement. So it's like almost 5,000 square feet. It's a huge house.
Wow.
And so he wanted to sell it on terms. We got it under contract for $290. He owed $230 on it. So he's got $60,000 of equity. But I wrote it up with $100 down. He knows that we wrapped our new mortgage around the $290 price, but I'm still making that same payment of the $1,700. So in that example, I have a 30-year term on that to get him his $60,000. He really wasn't concerned about when he got his equity. He wanted his house sold because he's no longer Airbnb out of it, and he doesn't want that payment. You know, $1,700 a month was hurting him. So we put in a tenant buyer who gave us, I think it was $32,000 on that property down. Our rent there is $3,000 a month, so we cash flow like $1,300, and it's $1,200 some change. And we sold it to them on a lease purchase for $400,000. And this is a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood. So our markup's $110,000. We make $1,200 a month, and you know it was a $100 down deal. Total cost of acquisition on that I think was like around $15,000 with all the payments because we have to make a couple while we're showing it. The house is turnkey. I think we just put up like some smoke alarms. That was all we did to it. But that was it. So when you get that non-refundable option deposit, you're instantly up, and we cash flow like a monster out of that thing. So just a good example of where the seller has a turnkey house, a really high-end property. They've got $60,000 of equity in the deal, but they don't need it. They don't need it now, and they're willing to wait up to 30 years to get it, knowing that we're going to get them cash out at one point. I just don't know when. But until then, we'll take care of the payment, and they love the fact that we did it.
Amazing.
So you can't. My story here is don't let your head tell you what that seller will or won't do because you don't know their situation. You don't know their motivation. You stick to the questions, and the way we do it is we ask a series of questions with our straight line approach of a script that we've made, and the seller presents us the offer. We don't, if we have to tweak the negotiation after we receive the offer, that happens a lot, but we don't have to name the first number. We don't have to forcefully get like mortgage information. They give it to you the way we designed it. So it's been super helpful.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Sounds amazing.
You guys run a like a mentorship education type program as well. Can you guys tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have done one-on-one mentoring for, I think it was about 2 years, and we loved that, but the demand was growing. So we paused that, and we just created an online module. So now we have a group coaching where people can kind of walk themselves through some online presentations with PDFs, and then we also have like a live Q&A session, and we're going to continue to expand on that. Because I think a lot of the information needs to be absorbed a few times, quite honestly, with some of these terms and, deals. Just for me, it did at least. Like, I was an English teacher, so when numbers and all of this, like, I was like reading the books or like hearing these things like 10 times before it actually stuck. And then when we started going through the deal making process is when I really understood it. So from a teacher's perspective, I really want students to be able to have a better chance at getting what we're trying to teach them, as opposed to meeting like once a week for 30 minutes. It just wasn't quite as much as I felt like we could really give people in a little bit different of a setting. People are busy too, full-time, kids, things happening. And so to have an online platform, we've really started to go that model, and I'm really excited to grow it and just see how we can really best serve people, because there is so much that you can do with creative strategies. It's just finding the time to educate yourself and getting around the right people.
Yeah, I think that's key too, is just being around people that are into it, and talking to people who are more successful than you are, especially when you're just first starting out, is key to figuring it out. And it kind of forces you into a situation where you kind of feel like you've got to keep up with somebody who's getting things done, so you get things done like almost like you feel like it's a necessity. And yeah, I think that's awesome. You guys are running a program like that. That's really cool.
It's like having a pace car in a race, right? So we're going to help you pace along a route. And the neat thing about the modules, like when we did one-on-one coaching, it was great. A ton of our students did a lot. And it's been great. The challenge is we can only handle so many students per week. She's got the multiple businesses that she's running, homeschooling. I'm working on a lot of the deals. We're both busy as far as that goes. Plus, obviously we want to help people, but the waiting list to get on our coaching program just got to be insane. And then, we'd have a cutoff that we're only taking a dozen, and then you leaving, a ton more people. Like, I have to wait 6 more months. Yeah. And it got to be a lot. So that's when we realized we could put this, with Jenn, especially being a teacher, we could put this together in different modules as a step-by-step.
Bite-sized pieces, I think works best too.
Right.
And really the breakdown of everything that we're currently doing, every lessons that we've learned, because we've gone through a lot of different coaches. We've spent well over 6 figures on coaching, masterminds, different programs, learning, flying out to different things, and really just kind of grasping what's been working, dial that in. And we don't do anything special. It's not like we have some magic formula. We just love helping sellers coming up with more solutions than just the typical cash, where it's not black and white. There's a spectrum of ways to make deals if you learn creative finance, and it's opening your eyes to that spectrum. Is when you put the glasses on, you can see more. Right. And that's really where the creative finance comes in, because there's so many ways to structure a deal. It blows my mind still. So every single time I look at a deal, my brain starts to spin so quickly of like, what's the avenue for entry and exit? And then how many of them are there? Now let's rank them from best to worst, and then let's move forward to that way. So we've created a creative finance calculator that really will help put a snapshot to it that our team gets to use, because we're right in our office downtown Florida right now. We have our acquisition team upstairs and disposition team. And when I have an acquisitionist looking at a deal, I have them plug in the figures to our calculator, and it's going to spit out a spectrum of, this is a good deal or not. And if we have one that's like really hot, like, let's get this one on a closing call immediately. Or if this one's not fitting in the range, what do we need to do to get it there? And so, analyzing those deals at a lightning speed has been super helpful.
Yeah. Now, are you guys concentrating mostly on single family homes?
I would say mostly yes, although we are looking, there's a 5-unit building in New York. We're doing a walkthrough on Saturday. It's semi-creative because we're buying that in a self-directed IRA.
Okay.
So the good thing is there, if we buy that in the self-directed IRA, all the rents go back into our IRA tax-free.
Amazing.
Oh, nice, yeah.
which is great. Or if we buy the building, do some light renovations, raise the rents, we could literally almost double for what we bought it for. And that profit would go back into my IRA tax-free as well. So it's creative in a way. But yeah, we mostly focus on single family homes. We mostly focus on folks who are just trying to sell their home and looking for some help. We've had some multiple family opportunities, especially a lot of our students. So you could do it with any one of them, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. With that 5-unit, you said you're using a self-directed IRA. Can you go into that a little bit? What that's like?
Yeah. So your self-directed IRA, if you have an IRA or an old retirement plan for where you work, you can roll that into what's called a self-directed IRA, which is an IRA that you can buy multiple things with, but one of them that you could buy is real estate. So what happens is the company that we use is out of Houston, Texas. They're Quest Trust Company. If you look up Quest Trust, they're great. They do a lot of free training too. But what we did is my old retirement plan, one of them, I rolled it into a self-directed IRA because the market does this all the time. And I know when I'm looking at these real estate deals, how well we do. And I look at the rate of return and I wouldn't be happy with an 8% return on what we're able to do. So what we do inside of this IRA is we can buy real estate. And if I'm going to flip it, do a fix and flip, or even do what's called a hotel where I buy it with cash and I just put it on the market with a clean out, like we just did one of those and made like $75,000. $75,000 goes back in our IRA tax-free. Now you can do that deal outside of an IRA, but if you look to do that, you're going to pay short-term capital gains because we only own the house for a month. And, they're going to take a large chunk, a third of your income of profits gone, where we get to retain the full amount, put that back in an IRA, and then reinvest that in other projects. So these are why I love things like self-directed IRAs. And then if you buy a rental property using that, all the rent goes back in there tax-free as well. So this is a strategy a lot of folks, the IRS still lets us use to this day. There's not many loopholes yet, but this is still one of them they let you take advantage of. And so we do. And there's a lot of guys that I know and girls that are becoming IRA millionaires because you're able to grow your IRA so much faster because you're growing it at a rate you don't have to pay taxes. You could do a self-directed IRA where you have to get taxed once you take the money out at 59.5 or more, or you could do a self-directed Roth IRA, which that money has already been taxed and it'll never be taxed again. So doing those deals inside of an IRA has been great. Jenn found one that was a piece of land in New York. She was on Facebook Marketplace and she's like, this looks cheap. I'm like, that is cheap. Tell her she'll do any less. So we got the property for $8,000.
I tried for terms. They said no.
Yes. I was so proud. They said no, they wanted $8,000 cash. They didn't even live in the state anymore. And they were asking $9,000. We bought it for $8,000. It was $9,500 after closing costs. We sold it on the MLS right after we closed on it. And we sold it for $26,500. We netted out $24,000 after closing costs and a commission. So that profit now goes back in our IRA tax-free for life. So now we've done a handful of these land deals, and this small little account is grown exponentially because of using this where we're buying just small land deals, profit goes back in tax-free in your IRA, and now it's blown up. So it's pretty fun.
Well, that's fantastic. When you do the self-funded IRA type deals, does all the cash need to come out of your IRA, or is there ways of bringing other finance to a deal in such situations?
If you bring financing into the deal, you'll trigger what's called UBID, which is unrelated tax income something or other. You will be taxed on it. So if I buy a property subject to, and I need a $20,000 down, you put that inside your IRA, you will get taxed on that. It's still an avenue to buy the property versus not if you need to tap into that kind of funds, but you would get taxed on that. However, if you bring in a partner on the deal and they come up with cash and you come up with cash, the profit gets split. Your half goes back into your IRA tax-free.
Oh, that's a nice way to do it.
Yeah. Or if you're, I'm not trying to go too far into this, but I can't.
A rabbit hole.
It's a rabbit hole. It's nuts. So like what we do sometimes is called a sandwich lease purchase, where I get a property under contract is a lease purchase.
Yep.
Which means I could rent it and I could buy it for this price. But ours is a sandwich lease because that means now I'm going to have that agreement with my seller, but my agreement says I could also release that and resell that to an end buyer, and I'm sandwiched in the middle. So what happens is I'll get this property under contract. It's just a piece of paper. I don't close it on it. There's no closing costs. There's no insurance policy because the owner still owns it. I'm just renting it from them, and I'm going to release it to somebody else who's going to give me a large non-refundable option deposit. So say for an example, I strike up a deal with Nancy, and Nancy says, fine, I'll do the deal. I said, Nancy, I'm going to do this with $100 down or even $1,000 down, and I want no payments for 90 days. And I take that $1,000 out of my IRA and I give that to her as my deposit.
Right.
Now I collect a $10,000, $20,000 non-refundable option deposit. That goes back into my IRA tax-free because I don't owe any debt on that property because I don't own it. I'm just leasing it. And then all of the middle rent that I have a markup in, that goes back into my IRA tax-free. And then once my end buyer cashes me out and I get that back end check, that goes into my IRA tax-free. So you could get an IRA account with a few $1,000 in it and control real estate and make a ton in there.
Wow, that's amazing. That's it's just so valuable.
You guys are having us on here. I want to drop some gold nuggets for you guys and your listeners and share some of the good stuff that works and all the different ways that they don't talk about enough.
Yeah, that is cool. I really like that.
I think for us three, we've learned a lot of different creative approaches, but we've learned through the same mentor. And when it comes down to it, I think it's that continuous learning thing. You've got some strategies that I'd love to learn as well. You know, there's just so much you can keep learning, and there just seems to be an infinite number of ways to try to peel the onion as such. There's layers upon layers, you know.
That's exactly what I say, is peeling away all the layers like an onion. And that's why what we did was we call it the Creative Finance Playbook. It's just like a sport, right? Like there's so many different plays that you can run. When you see what's happening and what the defense is giving you, you know, pull out this playbook. And when you're a cash buyer and you're only offering cash, your playbook is this thin, right? There's cash. When you have a playbook like this, because there's so many different layers to that onion, your playbook's a big one, right? So you could run so many different options, and knowing and really understanding how they all can work and the reasons why you implement them versus other strategies. The idea of it is to not needing to get more leads, but it's to convert a higher amount of deals out of the leads you're already getting. Just getting a better conversion rate by being able to make more offers. And that's the strategy we love. So if you're great at lead gen, you're going to do a crap ton of deals. And if you're trying to do good at lead gen, you're still going to be able to get more deals out of the same amount of leads just by having these strategies.
What would you say or would you be willing to share with our listeners some of your favorite lead gen strategies?
Get it, Tiger.
Yeah, I would say referrals from everybody that you know, and utilizing social media. So obviously in the pandemic, that was our only source of reaching people, was through our phones and our computers. So, you know, we found such value. And even since then, people are still on their phones and their computers, right? So if you don't have a free Facebook page, if you don't utilize your platforms on any single one, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, I mean, whatever you want to do, you know, just telling everybody what you do. You buy and sell real estate, you buy and sell houses, and you share those stories, right? Not just like a stock photo on Canva or of a house, but you sharing, like, I helped this seller who was in this situation, and you tell their story. People will feel that energy and know that, like, oh, I know someone like that, or I myself was in that situation. And offering referral money, right? Everyone could use a little extra money, especially times like these. So having that abundance mindset, knowing that the more you share, the more it will come back to you. So I'd say that definitely social media referrals, direct mail is always there. It is a little bit more expensive though, but there's a ton of free ways. It just takes effort and energy. Those are my top three, I would say.
We really dive into social media. Jenn is a mastermind. She's trying to be like all coy about it, but she is like, and I think it has a lot from some of her previous experiences. She was in some other programs where they taught her a lot about social media. And so long before she was in real estate, she was doing other things. I'm like, honey, just do real estate. But what it was, a great thing. I still supported her, but she was learning so much about marketing and social media. Mm-hmm. The minute she came onto this side of the table, I was like, aha, gotcha.
Well, he told me selling jewelry, right? And he's like, okay, necklaces and earrings are fun, but do you know how much houses are worth?
Right. I was like, you want to see one of these house checks compared to, like, she's on all these Zooms, doing all the social media stuff. And like, she'd be like, I got a check for like $226. I'm like, great. That's great. I'll take that 226. I'm happy for it. But you want to see what one of these real estate checks. And I think that's what really got her.
But social media is definitely, it's there, it's free, use it, just get over your fear, whatever's holding you back. You got to kind of dig down. I know a lot of folks, I work with them, our students, I don't like the camera, I don't want to go live, but what if, and I just heard the other day someone say, well, no one else is paying my bills, so I'm just starting to go live more, and I'm putting stuff out there, and she's getting free leads, it's just making deals, and they're great deals.
Yeah, that's a mindset thing. It was super hard for me at first as well to do the social media thing. I didn't even have a Facebook or an Instagram or any of that stuff until until I met Pace. He said he wouldn't do business with anybody who didn't have an Instagram. So I was like, all right, I'll do an Instagram. And I had to have my kids. They were high schoolers at the time. Help me set it up and everything. So, yeah, but and that kind of takes me into something I did want to discuss with you, Joe, real quick, is the mindset thing, because I think the first step I ever took into like expanding my mindset was watching like about a half-hour post. I think it was about 20 minutes to a half hour, where you discussed the book Think and Grow Rich. And that was the first book that I read that had anything to do with mindset. And it really sent me on a journey of expanding the way I think about things. And I just was wondering if maybe you could go into a little bit, both you guys actually could go into a little bit about what you guys do to keep your head in the game. And we kind of discussed earlier, you guys are forever learning, but maybe just what are some of the things you guys are leaning on, like Think and Grow Rich?
I've always been a huge fan. This was in the late 90s. I was lucky enough to work for a guy who was a motivational speaker worth a ton of money. He had a $6.5 million mansion in Texas that I got to live in his guest house. And he was very, very wealthy. And I learned so much from him. And he says, you're not going to be here forever. I'm not going to be around forever. He was like, so what you need to do is you need to continue the education. His mentor was Earl Nightingale. He worked directly for Earl Nightingale. And this guy, at the point where it's in the late 90s, I'm like 21 years old. He's in his mid 60s. And his wife is my age, has a Rolls Royce, has all the things in life. He's very, very successful. Not marriage-wise, he was on his fourth wife, but other than that, he was still very successful financially. And so he was the one that really turned me on to the Zig Ziglars, the Dale Carnegies. He was like, the very first thing that you need to read is Think and Grow Rich. And he says when Earl had him read Think and Grow Rich, after he read it, he went back to Earl. Earl asked him, did this book speak to you? And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, go read it again. He's like, so I went and I read the book again. He was like, I went back. I said, hey, Earl, I finished the book the second time. Great book. I love it. He's like, did the book talk to you? And he's like, no, it didn't. He's like, go read it again. He's like, I read it the third time. He's like, and when I read it the third time, he was like, it was almost like the book was talking to me, explaining to me the blueprint and the path I need to be successful. This guy went from he was pumping gas at a gas station when he met Earl. Earl liked his attitude, said, hey, you have a good attitude. Come work for me. Gave him a card, hired him on the spot. Went from being broke in a gas station to the guy's worth gajillions of dollars. I still talk to him. And he's doing very well. I think he's on his sixth wife now. But financially, he's still got it going on and still sharp as a tack in his mid-80s. And he's still in business because he loves the thrill of the hunt. And so he taught me back then, though, is always continue your education. Don't ever stop. Always be a student. And when you feel like you're a master, that's when you're going to start losing. So I love when you said earlier that like we're masters of creative finance. I will never be a master. I will always be a student because I feel like I'll never be there. Maybe when I'm 80, I'll feel like it, but I am way too young to feel like that. We do a lot of deals and I love to do that, but I always want to be that humble student, always wanting to learn. And so mental attitude is the first thing you have to have that. Your challenges, your battles are going to be won or lost in your head first. And when I met Jenn, she was the first one that I ever met, because when we did meet, she's like, what are you listening to all this weird stuff for? Because I have all the audio cassette tapes in my car, or CDs, and then obviously as time gone on, it was different. But I still have all the audio cassettes from the 90s of all these great books.
But I think it's finding something that you'll actually listen to. And, you know, typically I was a former English teacher, so like, of course, I'd love you to read the whole book, but there are parts of books that I do think speak to you. Think and Grow Rich, you should read cover to cover, absolutely, at least once, if not way more. But there are times in your business and your career where maybe you just need to pop something in your ear while you're driving or, doing dishes or laundry or running. And it's going to speak to you. And so, it's just continually, though, is if you stop, it's like anything. It's like starting up again can be a little tricky, but you'll tell real quick when your mental capacity just kind of starts dipping and you just feel, everything feels hard and heavy and you feel really negative and frustrated. Like that's when you need it the most. But every day you should be listening at least 10 to 15 minutes to an audio book or, reading an actual book.
Jim Rohn always says, make sure you get your 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Makes a ton of sense. I've got to say, I'm really impressed with your modesty that you're always learning. That's what mentors and people I like to be around. The people that I like to be around, and who appeal to me are ones that don't want to say I'm the master, that do want to show that they're continuing to learn. So I'm very impressed with that sort of attitude. I think they're the best people to work with quite often as well, for exactly that reason.
Well, thank you. Hopefully one day I'll get there, but not yet.
Somebody called us gurus one time, like you're doing it, and because we were actually running the deals and doing everything that we help others do as well. But I think that there's so much to be said, what you just shared, that if you're actively learning and always a student, like you have so much more growth to be had. And I think that's really important to remember. Like we're not there. I know some people like, I just want to be there, but what is there? I don't know.
Yeah. And I think it's super important if you're going to pick somebody to model what you're doing. If you're going to base what your business on what somebody else is doing, they should actively be doing the business. That's going to be key to figuring it out, because the market's shifting and changing. So what was working, we know, especially right now, what was working last year, this time isn't working right now. That if you could have an entire business based on doing cash deals this time last year, you better know creative finance right now. It's if you want that deal flow to maintain at least.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially now, it's changed so quickly and rapidly. Because you're right, we do deals constantly. Like this is our jobs. It's 5 to 7 days a week. This is what we do. And it's closer to the 7 days or 6 days than it is the 5. But with that being the case, with the market changing so quickly, those wholesalers and the cash folks who are doing these deals, you really have to dial in now because the market changed. And I've been doing this for 20 something years. And this last quick change the way it did, I mean, it snapped.
Yeah.
And it's still changing. It's still going to have, I think, more of this happening for another year or so. So creative finance is definitely a strategy where you want to know, because we were still making deals a year ago when the market was red hot. But now with sellers who are in situations, there's so many deals to be had out there. You just need to make sure you're finding deals that you like that make sense for you and the seller. Mm-hmm. But there's tons of them out there right now.
What was one of our students? He followed up for how long?
He just did a post. He followed up for a year and 7 months and finally made the deal like this week.
That's awesome.
He is relentless. Yeah. And this is what we love about them is they have a great follow-up system. And they just don't stop.
They don't quit.
They don't
That's
stop.
really the secret, I really think, is just don't quit.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
One of the things that I sort of picked up as you guys were talking is that a lot of the stuff that you're buying is in New York, where I know that in a lot of the strategies that we're using, we're kind of avoiding, California and New York and some of these places because of the buy and hold rental strategies and whatnot. What has made New York appealing for you?
So just like we kind of started in the very beginning, is that's where we lived.
Yeah, it was
right?
our backyard.
That was our backyard, so we lived there. It does have hostile landlord laws. They don't like landlords. So it gives us an edge, though. It does, because why? You just mentioned it. A lot of investors don't want to buy in these areas. So Jenn and I are known, like in all of upstate New York, like if you want somebody who understands creative finance, like it points to her and I, which is great. Because now any of these folks up in that, there's a couple others that I've noticed who have been coming up there, but really because her and I have been doing it for so long, we kind of set that place on the map. So when we have our exit strategy, that I don't really know anybody who's still doing this in New York, but we work with tenant buyers who are giving us $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to move in to a property. They've got skin in the game, not just first and last month's rent. Now, however, we are doing a clean out literally today of a property. We had to evict somebody. They gave us $12,000 to move in and stop paying rent. If they're going to move into one of our properties and stop paying rent and we have to evict them, I'm glad they gave us $12,000 and not first and last month's rent. Because now once we do the clean out, what are we going to do? We're going to get another $15,000, $20,000 non-refundable option deposit. We're going to put in another tenant buyer in the same property. So our dispo guys upstairs showing it right now, putting on Facebook and all the other places right now too. So because we have the right exit strategy, we could get in other territories where a lot of other investors shy away from. We do a lot in Pennsylvania. We do in Florida, where we live here too. We have a deal right now. We just wrote in Windsor, Colorado. It's 1 hour north of Denver. The house is a new build. It's 7 months old. The folks bought it brand new, and then the wife is pregnant, wants to move to Florida to be closer to family, and so they want to sell this sub too. So if we give them $5,000 down, they owe $505 on it, and if we give them $5,000 down, they're letting us take over their existing mortgage for the next 29 years and some change.
Amazing.
And it's a turnkey, like 2,500 square foot house that needs absolutely nothing.
That's so cool that you guys can get properties with essentially zero equity, take them over without even a credit check.
Yeah, and that's been the key right now. So part of our avatar seller that I can share with your audience and you guys, with these creative finance deals, it seems like almost all of them, because I keep track on every one of them, almost all of them have owned the property for less than 5 years.
Wow, that's interesting.
And we've been doing this for a long time. Now, there are some exceptions. I inherited the house. It was my grandfather's house, and then I turned it into a rental. Now I want to sell it. But technically, he didn't even own it for 5 years.
Right.
So it was in the family for much longer, but once he bought it when grandfather passed away. So even majority of our deals, I'd say the bulk of these creative deals are ownership, and most of them are like a year or two.
And it seems that most investors are looking for the high equity. So to have this advantage of looking for those who haven't owned it that long has been really key.
Yeah, we look under stones that nobody else is looking underneath, which is the low equity.
Yeah, that's awesome. And with those deals, like you were talking about earlier, a lot of times these sellers would have to write a check to walk away from their home, and you're giving them an opportunity to move on and do whatever they're going to go do, maybe even put a couple grand in their pocket. And that's a win-win. You're gaining control of that property. They're walking away with a couple bucks in their pocket. How can you even beat that? Everybody walks away from a transaction with something better than they had before. That's amazing.
Well, and the neat thing about it is a lot of these terms deals that we get, especially here in Florida, like if we assign some of these, because we have so many folks who want to buy these here in Florida. We had a gentleman who had a house in Davenport, Florida. He was moving to California, already moved. His house, the seller backed out, or I'm sorry, his buyer backed out 5 days before closing. House was already empty. He was gone. So they put it back on the market, not selling. He calls me, says, hey, listen, I'm taking this thing off the market. I owe $290. He was asking $375 for it. The house is built in, I think it was 2008, 2,000 square foot house with a pool north of Disney by 20 minutes, because the guy, he used to work at Disney. So he says, I owe 290. If you just give me 10 grand down and cover my closing costs, you could take over this house. I'm fine with it. So we got under contract for 300 grand. We were going to give him $10,000 down at closing. All I did was I shared it on my social media, like, hey guys, like these deals are out there. You just got to look for them. Here's a house we just got under contract for terms. And our dispo manager DMs blew up. How much you want for the house? And we're like, it's not for sale. And they're like, hey, well, I'll give you this. And we ended up getting a $35,000 assignment fee for that deal.
Amazing.
So it's a beautiful house, beautiful neighborhood, not very old, turnkey. And a lot of these we're finding are not even old houses too. So it's been a real game changer for us, for some of our investor friends who want to buy these deals. And then maybe they want to have a second house in Florida that they're going to Airbnb. Maybe they're going to turn into a rental themselves, or maybe some of these folks are moving into them too. Actually, that Davenport house, he's an investor. But he's like, no, I'm actually moving to Florida, and I'll take that house for myself and my family to move into.
Oh, that's neat.
That's what happened.
Do you concern yourself with the due on sale clauses too much? I mean, it's always a concern that the mortgage is going to get sold off, and suddenly you're going to be in troubles, and people are going to pay attention, and all the rest of it. How do you find that?
So I don't worry about it, because I don't want to worry about things that might not happen. If they do happen, then I have something to concern myself with, but I'm not going to worry about it because there's different things you could do. First of all, that one was a VA loan, and in the VA language, they do not have a due on sale clause.
Gotcha.
So it's not even written in there. So that was the factor with that. However, if there are challenges with due on sale clauses, there are certain things you could do. If you buy on a lease purchase, there's no worry for that. If you buy it with contract for deed, the deed doesn't transfer over, no worries for that. If you buy it with a wrap mortgage or subject to, and the deed does transfer, as long as you are making the payments on time and you have the insurance set up, it is highly unlikely the bank is going to do it unless it's your house, then they might. But, most of the time they're not going to be an issue. I've got one right now where the bank is asking for the trust paperwork, because they want to see who's the beneficiary of the trust and things like that. So we could work around all the things and make sure that they're happy. And really the bank's not going to want to take the property back. If they do, right, if they back you into a corner and say, okay, we're taking it back, you could easily quit claim the deed back, property back into the seller, and then buy it on a contract for deed, where now the deed is back in the seller's name, and there's really not much the bank's going to be able to do for that, although the sale still reported that you're buying it. And then other than that, you could also, depending on what your exit strategy is, maybe you're going to buy it, but you're just going to do a fix and flip and you're planning on selling it shortly. You can talk to the bank and tell them what you're doing. There's all types of things you can do. You could even send them a letter saying that I'm suing you because I bought this house and I've been making the payments for the last 2 years.
That's one I like.
And then not only that too, is if the seller were to also write them a letter saying, I'm going to sue you because you sold me this house and I couldn't afford it and you probably knew better.
Yes, true.
Right? So if they were to get a letter from me saying, I bought this, I've been making the payments on time, I'm going to sue you, and then they're going to get that from the seller too, you're going to probably at least give yourself some time.
Right. Yeah.
But it is a good question. I think it's the big boogeyman that keeps a lot of investors an excuse that, oh, well, that could happen, so I'm not going to learn about it. So.
You know what, though? Like, we're downtown and we're crossing the street and there's traffic anywhere. Any one of those cars could hit me too, but I don't worry about it.
I like that. You take precautions.
But I'm careful, right? I'm not dancing in the middle of traffic by not paying my payments on time or not putting insurance on the house.
Right.
But if I do all the right things and pay my payments, we pay them early. I mean, we pay them sometimes probably too early because it caused a couple problems where we pay them way too early. But we pay our payments early because you think of it as a bank. As long as the house has insurance and they're getting their payments early, you're usually never flying on their radar.
Yeah, makes sense.
Now, our time is running right up to the end of the show here. But do you have time for a question or two more?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've been wanting to ask for the last couple of minutes. you guys have been talking about lease option as one of the primary strategies that you guys use for Dispo. What is your strategy for finding lease option buyers?
Well, our favorite way again is social media. We started a page back in 2017, 585 Rent to Own, because that's how we really got started into all of this. And so when you put out there that you have a beautiful house that someone doesn't need to go to a bank for and they don't need credit, your messages and your phone will literally go crazy. So with that, will everybody have a large amount for the non-refundable option deposit? No, you'll have to sift through them. So you want to make sure you have the time or some help to go through all of those buyers. But I think it's only about 80% is the mortgage.
Yeah, you're talking only it's like 17% could qualify for a mortgage. So you're talking 80% of the population can't qualify for a mortgage. So our audience is pretty huge. Now, most of these don't have money enough to get into this property, but we have a great following from this way, and you will find them. So between that,
Craigslist, Zillow, signs around the property. If you're there local, you do them yourself. The big ugly yellow sign, rent to own home, bad credit, okay, no bank qualifying, and a phone number.
And they got to be ugly, handwritten ugly. Don't make it look like a professional sign. Don't have a print shop do it. I'm telling you, we get the biggest yellowish yard signs I can find. And I'm the one that writes them because my handwriting is atrocious. Rent to own, bad credit, okay, no banks, phone number.
Yep.
Put that in front of the house. 2 of those, they're so big and they're so ugly, your phone will blow up. We have an answering service that does it for us because we don't want to filter the calls. And then once that call comes through, we get an email with all the information.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've gone the path of trying to find lease option buyers in the past. I didn't stick with it very long. It wasn't my favorite strategy, but that's probably because I didn't stick with it very long. And one of the things that I came across early, and I'm wondering how long do you keep pushing against that obstacle until you break through, was a lot of people thinking, oh, this is a scam. This is not, you're not legit. There's no way, this is too good to be true. I find that an awful lot, even when we're trying to find wrap buyers, people questioning the validity of the deal just because, they're not used to seeing something presented this way.
Yeah, absolutely. When we first started, that was, for me, the hard part too, because we hadn't done one yet. So it was really him not convincing, but sharing with me no, this is, the right way. This is how we're going to help people. He knew finance and credit. So once he educated me from him being properly educated, then I could relate to the other people. And you're going to get that, right? You're a scam, you're this, and you just, you can't help everybody. But those who really can be helped and have the money, they'll be your testimonials. And you want to have a place where you can share that and showcase, whether it's Facebook or a website or what have you. And then people will, be able to go look that up because they want some credibility. There are people that do this the wrong way. There are people that scam people, obviously. So you just want to make sure that you can present yourself in a wonderful manner and showcase the great things that you are doing.
Well, and also dials back to what you started from with our social media page. It's all us. We don't put stock photos up there. So if you go to our Facebook page, 585 Rent to Own, you're going to see videos of myself, Jen, our kids walking through some of these properties, doing a walkthrough. You're going to see testimonials of folks who've been through our program where we've actually turned renters into owners. Mm-hmm. What better testimonials to have? However, you're still going to have the trolls try to come out and throw tomatoes at your face.
Every time.
Even now, they still do, but you guys are a scam. I'm like, how are you? You're just a knucklehead, right? If you're the kind of person that just drags your knuckles on the ground, I can't help you with that. You're going to think what you're going to think. But in all honesty, when you have the social media page, it's so easy to update and customize and put videos on there. And everybody's usually on Facebook. Go check out our Facebook page, like it, follow it, and you'll keep current on all of our newest listings and projects we're working on. So we build the audience there. The second part to what you're talking about, Justin, is, every one of our deals, whether it's a lease purchase or we're going to sell it, however, in a wrap or whatever we're going to do, they're always lease purchases for us. They go and they don't give the money to Joe and Jen. They go to an attorney's office. Yep. They sign all the agreements at the attorney's office. They pay the attorney for $400 for their time. they pay and give all the money to the attorney's office, and then that attorney disperses the funds. So therefore, when you're sitting down with a lawyer, if you're still calling us a scam, you're just a knucklehead, right? Like
nobody at that point does.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not gonna sign someone up at the kitchen counter and take 25 grand from them. They've never met me before. Although I had one lady give me 32,000 in a Starbucks. I thought she was just gonna give me like a $2,000 deposit.
Yeah.
She's like, here's 32 grand, right? I'm like, I just met you at a Starbucks, lady. Like, holy fuck, pump the brake.
I really want the house.
I still took the check. She's still in the house.
Yep.
This is what, 6 years later. So with that being the case,
Right.
it happens.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Justin, you want to take us out?
All right, sounds good. Hey, folks, this has been an amazing show. Jenn, Joe, thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Thank you for having us, guys.
Amazing opportunity to get to hear, and hopefully you guys who are watching at home, you've been blessed by the information that's been shared with you today. Please give a like and subscribe, help support the channel, and help us to continue bringing more and more content to you like this. I know I've been blessed. My business is going to do better because of this, and I believe your guys will as well. So Jenn, Joe, thank you again for being on as always.
Sorry, before you finish, Justin, have we got Jenn and John's details in the chat below? Please give them some love on their website. If you guys just want to give us your just want to push your Facebook page before we sign off.
Yeah, absolutely. CreativeFinancePlaybook.com. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook group, Facebook pages, Instagram is Jenn and Joe Delafave. So definitely message us. We love to communicate, network, and help in any way we can.
Yeah, and if you guys get those to me, I sent you a message earlier today on Facebook. If you guys get me that information, I'll make sure to put it in the description below this video for our future watchers. And please, you guys, if you take a moment, join the Grow Giver community. You can do that by going to facebook.com/groups/the Grow Giver. And yeah, we'd love to have you as part of that as well and be able to interact with you there. And, hopefully add value to you and get some of that value like you've already shared with us today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think that's pretty much all I have. Next week, we've got Ingrid Hernandez, who's going to be on the show with us. That is going to be an amazing show. Ingrid is amazing. She's a realtor in the Phoenix area. She is a Sub-2 mastermind student and leader. She is someone who has several years of experience and has done a lot of deals. So you're going to get a lot of juicy, crunchy, creamy, good information in the show next week. The week after that, we're going to be interviewing Elena Tang, who is she's a mindset wizard. And we're getting a lot of great information on mindset from Elena. I was meaning to ask you guys if you guys are familiar with the book. It's one that I'm kind of new to. I just recently heard about it. It's called the Master Key System. Are you guys familiar with that one? It's older. It's a public domain book. It's older than Think and Grow Rich, but I guess that it was heavily influential to Napoleon Hill, and helped him formulate some of the ideas of that book. So, anyway,
and what's it called again?
The Master Key System.
Okay, I'm gonna look that up. He has the master key to riches. That's why when you said that, I was like, wow, that sounds really familiar.
Yeah.
But the master key.
So yeah, I'm actually I haven't read it yet. I'm gonna deep dive into it. That's my goal for I'm flying out to California this weekend, and so that's my goal while I'm in my travels. So we're 9 minutes over our 1 hour. Guys, you have been so amazing to stay with us this whole time. We love you. We appreciate you. Some of the great comments that were there. From Tanisha and Joel And just thank you guys for watching the show. We will see you guys next week, same bat time, same bat channel, every Friday, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time on the Grow Giver podcast.
Awesome.